We are Magic 102.3 and 92.7, the real sound of the DMV. It's Vic Jagger, an amazing event happening on January 20th, the MLK Tribute, The Other America. And I'm always happy to have, some amazing, well-versed, excited people here to talk about events like this. And I have Reverend Hamlin, the Canon Missioner of the Washington National Cathedral, Attorney Judith Brown-Dianis, background in civil rights, litigation,
yes,
and also just an advocate for voting, housing, employment rights. I love it. Thank you for being here. And of course, our founder and chairperson, Dr. Cathy Hughes. Mm-hmm. So we are excited about this event, and I'll start with you, Reverend Hamlin. Why is this event so important for our community to know about and to participate in, to be a part of?
Well, as we come upon, of course, the holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King, there's going to be a wrestling of whether or not individuals will be reflecting upon what Dr. King has said, listening to just the words, or hearing a message. What we are excited about in this partnership, of course, with Dr. Hughes and with Judith Dianis and the Advancement Project, is that we are trying to make sure that individuals are hearing the message that Dr. King was lifting, and to become aware of the reality in which we find ourselves right now, the divisions within our society, the racism that still exists, the separatism, the economic, of course, disparity, the haves, the have-nots. There's so much in terms of its incarceration, injustice. All of these things are part of what Dr. King was fighting for and against. And we're hoping to get a generation and a community aware of the realities so that we can do something about it.
I love it. And, Ms. Dianis, I know this is, your lane with, voting rights, and you see the discrimination that, people of color go through. So this event is very significant to your cause and what you advocate for. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Thanks for having me. This event is important to Advancement Project because we need more people to get on board. We cannot do this work by ourselves. People have to act and have to engage. I think one thing that is important is that people always see Dr. King as the I Have a Dream speech. And that's usually all they know because that's all our schools tell us. Mm-hmm. But King was a radical. King, in this particular speech, talks about racism. He talks about genocide. He talks about white backlash. And the fact that that's not new. Oh, here we are today with the same kind of situation. He talks about the fact that people are ready to get rid of the Bull Connors, which is the Trump of today, but they're not ready to take on inequality. And so for us, this is important because we want people to know that the fight continues, that there's work that must be done when you talk about the criminal justice system, when you talk about the school-to-prison pipeline, when you talk about immigration issues and the inhumanity that's in that system. And so we're excited about having people come to the cathedral to re-engage with King, but also to engage with the work that has to be done.
Absolutely. And Dr. Hughes, you are just a powerhouse when it comes to rallying everyone together, especially for causes like this. And when you have people in Congress and you have
who don't see anything wrong with the term white superiority. What's wrong with that?
Okay. I'm hoping that a few of them will speak out. But, when it comes to getting young people involved in this and realizing that this is important, it's going to trickle down to the generations to come. How important is it for you to keep on pounding that message that we need to stand up, we need to speak out?
One of the things I think that has been, as you age, I think that you reflect over your life at things that you were able to get accomplished and things that you thought had been accomplished that have in fact, taking a step back. Dr. King talks about that in his speech, that yes, we've moved forward, but at the same time, we've taken steps backwards. All the research has shown that millennials basically do not focus on racism. Many of them don't even want to discuss it. The generation behind the millennials now seem to be a lot more active. One of the things that really concerns me is activism used to be really instigated and encouraged and supported in churches and in classrooms. Mm-hmm. teachers, professors, particularly at the college level, that the whole Kent State incident was because the faculty at Kent State was so radical and they focused on teaching their students how to be activists. We're missing that. Now the majority of our mega churches concentrate on the gospel of prosperity as opposed to the gospel of liberation. And that concerns me a lot, particularly being in the media, because we've created this false reality in the media of instant gratification and that everything is a visual, everything should be beautiful, everything should be over the top. Anytime you have someone who's not even 21 years old yet worth just under $1 billion, and the most significant thing she's done with her life is have a baby by a rapper, you realize how off course our young people have gone. Because the only way she got that $900 million was because young people went out and bought her cosmetics because her name was Kardashian. And they focus on that unapologetically. Well, I grew up in an era when I was that age where we focused unapologetically about changing the system, changing the government, making even playing field for everyone.
And supporting our community as well.
And supporting our community, most importantly. My grandmama used to say charity starts at home, and that it's good to be charitable to other folks, but first you take care of your family, your community, your neighborhood. And so I'm very disappointed in the industry that I chose to go into, because I thought that I would be a drum major for justice. And when we get too far out in terms of leading the parade for justice, then we are penalized by clients not wanting to support us, or we're criticized oftentimes by our own community. However, I believe in God, and I believe that I have a mission, and so we're going to continue being a drum major for justice. We're going to continue participating in events like Sunday at the National Cathedral. We're going to continue telling the truth on our airways and on our cable channel and on our digital services, because it's important for us to really, really, really give our community correct information, because information is power. And that's what I've dedicated my life to.
And so when the community comes together and, we fellowship, we listen to these words, what do you want people to leave with? What is the change? Where's the direction that you want people to go in and take with them from this event?
Let me say first that as of course, Dr. Hughes was lifting, is that we want them to have an awareness. There's so many passages that I could lift, but in terms of that we're transformed through the renewing of our mind. We've got to think differently. We've got to be aware of what's happening. And then if we think differently, that will change some habits. Once we can change some habits, we can change some actions. And ultimately what we want to do is to see persons get to the point where they are changing actions, and we are involved in what's going on. Certainly, as Dr. Hughes was lifting all things, as a house of worship, and I speak for myself, I believe that our worship, our faith, it ought to lead to something. It's not just a point of gathering. Right. That once we do that, there ought to be something that happens within us that says, I need to do something because I've seen. So as we raise these issues, and we know there's a long list of issues that need to be addressed, we need a lot of persons to get involved, because we all can't do the same thing, but we can work on that thing together doing different things. And if we can get everybody working and involved, and certainly through Advancement Project and all of these different jurisdictions and around, we can make change, and to see the change in reality right now for generations.
Right. Okay. So, Ms. Inez, when I know you work with young people, with millennials, and I know whenever I talk to someone young, just like Dr. Hughes said, they're worried about the entertainment aspect of it, and things that just don't matter, So how? Excuse
me, but matter to them, Vic. That's the problem.
Well, yeah,
it matters to them. Okay, we've got to help change and restructure their value system, because the media is totally responsible for what they consider valuable.
Yes, and I think that's a matter of looking at issues, and sometimes we're looking at the breadth of the issue when we should be worried about the depth of the issue and digging deep. We want to get so wide and have so much, but not have the things that matter and grow deep. And hopefully after this event, we'll be growing deep with what we need to grow in.
So, I want to just speak to this millennial issue. I guess I work in a bubble. I work in a bubble of activism. And one of the things that I will say is that, I have seen, because Advance the Project's 20 years old this year, and during that time, I have seen a lot of young people taking up issues of concern to the African American community, to the Latino community, to LGBT communities, and really doing really incredible work. If you think about after Trayvon was killed, right, the people who took to the streets, the people who actually took over the capital of the state of Florida, and we worked with them, the Dream Defenders, were young people. And so
true.
I think that
but younger than the millennials, most of them.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, all right.
But so I think from that to the killing of Mike Brown, we have seen an outpouring of young people who are taking on issues, which is no different from what we saw in the 60s when we had SNCC, who was sitting in at lunch counters were college students, right? And so we're seeing that because young people, first of all, have less fear, right? It's like, what do I have to lose, right? But also understand what justice and equality should look like. They're not yet tainted, right? And so I'm really hopeful about what is to come because I've seen so many young people taking to the streets and being active. And I think that we are people get the work that is ahead of us. There are people who are now understanding the role of prosecutors in our country, right? We have mass incarceration, and mass incarceration starts in kindergarten, and we, Black people, put the mass in mass incarceration, right? We are the mass. And so for us, many people, young people in particular, are starting to understand that system and starting to understand the power that they have and that our communities have. So I'm hopeful that we are going to see something different.
Hope because living in this social media.
But you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Yes. But we need to get our leaders, I think, such as yourself. All right. I mean, how many can we clone you? Okay. How many do? All right. Because again, I don't see the activism coming out of the churches. I don't see the activism coming out of the classrooms. I love the president of Howard University because when there was that student protest of several months ago, he listened to the students.
Yes.
He was responsive to the students. That was the third student protest at Howard I had been through. The two previous ones, they did not have the ear of the leadership of Howard. This go round, the reason it was resolved and they were able to give the students a green light on many of their complaints was because they had his ear. And I think that those of us who are still in positions of power and leadership have an obligation to change ourselves and lead by example. Young people, because right now, Judith, you're so correct. I'm so proud of these 19-year-olds and 17-year-olds. Even, I mean, the young man, what was he, 14, and they were talking about running him for president. I was like, anytime we got to get a 14-year-old to run for president, that's an indictment of everybody over the age of 21. I think that there is hope. And I think there is direction. And I think Sunday's program is an indication. How can people get involved?
How can people get involved?
This is a great example of coming together. And that's what we need. What I'm thankful for is the relationship that has been built for this event. As we do come together, we're bringing all of those who we have an opportunity to engage with and to influence, because we're going to have to solve this together. We're not solving this individually. It is through the coming together that we're going to be able to make great change.
And what do you need from us as a community? What do you need from us to help to push your message, to really, get out there, to get involved?
Well, certainly for this event, let me say what we
and
what we need,
forward.
and we're encouraging everyone to be present, to tune in, to listen in, to hear the message that Dr. King was lifting, and then find places to get involved where they can join in with other groups and other individuals in trying to correct some of the ills and the social challenges that we have right now. But we need persons to come together and to be present. We at the Cathedral, and I'm grateful to be in the position that I am now, but to work and to help individuals to come together, that we lift up the of course, mission of being a house of prayer for all people. So how do we make certain that the doors are open for everyone to get on one accord so that we can work together?
All right. And, the Cathedral Band will be there, so there will be entertainment, some singing going on.
Oh, a lot more than
J.J. Harrison.
J.J. Harrison, the Howard Choir.
Yes.
The
Washington Performing Arts, Children of the Gospel.
Children of the Gospel.
We're looking forward to having all of the expressions and lifting his message through the singing, through, of course, our readers. Dr. Hughes will be one of our prominent, of course, readers and, of course, participants, and helping to lead us through that afternoon.
And audience participation.
Y'all better
It's a
get
good
involved.
time.
Inside
It is
and
a good
out.
time.
That's
We've been
right.
doing this for a few years with the Cathedral, and it is very uplifting. I used to go for years to the Cathedral because it was one of the biggest MLK events. And then one year I said, hey, let's call them and see if Advancement Project can get involved. And so it's been a good, really good time for us. And it is very uplifting. But what we want to make sure is that you just don't get uplifted, right? You got to go from uplifting to action. And so part of that is, how do I get involved? And people will do everything from, we need you to be involved from, whether it's giving $5 to a charity or signing a petition for something, right? We're petitioning people all the time. We want people to join Advancement Project at advancementproject.org, sign up for our newsletter so that you know what's going on. And we work across the country on a number of issues that people can get involved in. And you've got to get involved in whatever is your passion. But you cannot sit on the sidelines. As Dr. King says, freedom is not inevitable.
I said that. I said I was going to focus on the organization a month, and I challenge everyone to really do that, to get involved with an organization that you're passionate about. And thank you so much for leading this fight, because I'm like, now I'm about to go on social media, because in this day and age, you post something and it goes viral, and then people pick up on it. So this is something definitely that could be a positive message for our millennials, and as Ms. Hughes say, and the people under the millennials coming up as well. And Dr. Hughes, lastly, I want to know, what can we do as far as in media? Because a lot of times, we feel like we are limited in what we say. We have sponsors, and we have executives who listen, and sometimes you want to get that message out there, but you kind of got to walk a line of just playing it neutral.
Well, you need to call me, because I never walked that line.
Yes.
Listen,
I never walked that line.
keep our jobs,
I'll
Dr. Hughes now.
teach you about how you can not have to walk that line.
Okay.
All right. I think that you have to continue to tell the truth. And you have to continue disseminating information. I think that people of color will do the right thing if they have the right information. Usually when we get information, the Black community, it's Black history. It's not current events, because we depend on other media outlets to tell us what's important. And now that we own and operate our own, we must use those cameras and those microphones and those computers to disseminate information that people can make the right decision with. And I think that that's not something that I think that's an individual commitment. I don't think that that's something that you have to worry about. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I prayed over something that I was going to do, like a Take It Back campaign against the Washington Post, which at that time was the most powerful daily newspaper in the world. All right. And I, knew that I would lose customers, I would lose clients, I would lose revenue. And guess what? I didn't. Because God blessed me, and he was with me, because I refused to back down until we saw it to fruition. I think that courage is a key element. That's what Dr. King had. Dr. King was brilliant, but he also was courageous. He was a rebel, and to be a true radical, to be a true rebel, you have to be fearless. And I think right now that too many of us are doing
Playing it safe. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're not going to be safe Sunday. Come on out.
Okay.
Join us at the National Cathedral. They need tickets or they need to register.
They can register online at the different sites. We'll take you to cathedral.org, and you'll be able to RSVP there.
That's right. So come on out January 20th, the MLK tribute, The Other America at 4 p.m. And you can also listen online, praisedc.com or on the Praise 104.1 app while you're on your way there. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I really appreciate it. And we will see you there.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's Magic 102.3 and 92.7.